Okay.
I'm recording now.
Okay, we're recording now. We're gonna start really easily. If first you can speak and spell your first and last name and your relation to your brother. Like, sorry.
Okay. My name is Gerry Singer, Gerrysinger. Bradley Singer was my youngest brother, and he was shot by the police on February 13th this year, and not sure when exactly he died, but he died the same day.
And Martin?
Martin Glazer. Is that good enough? You need more?
Just because sometimes it's not me who listens to the tape. If you just your title, you were Martin Glazer, Martin Glazer.
Martin Glazer, law office, criminal defense lawyer, and a criminal lawyer for 42 years.
And may I ask how old you are?
I'm 67 years old.
67 years old.
My brother was approaching, he was 60 years old.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have one brother left, Hartley Singer.
So I wonder if you could just start by telling me a bit about your brother. What was he like?
My brother was, a very kind person. He was an entrepreneur most of his life, and he got sick in his early 20s and never really recovered from it. And I guess he ended up in the grasp of the Criminal Review Board in 2001. And they'd have, annual hearings to decide whether he could be in the community or whether he could have an absolute discharge. And in that 20-year time he was under their control and his various doctors' controls, there was never any attempt made, or they didn't believe that people like him could be cured. So it was just like a storage thing. They medicated him involuntarily, and it caused him horrible side effects. Impotency, to a young man in his 20s, that's a pretty horrible side effect. And he'd just constantly be falling asleep. He'd go to a family gathering, after he'd eat, no matter where he was, he'd go on the couch, and he'd fall asleep for 3 or 4 hours. So his whole life became, he didn't want to take this medicine. And there was just no, attempt to help him, Like before my brother was shot on February 13th, he became ill a few months before that. And he wasn't following up on his requirements to stay in the community. So they sent the police there to apprehend him. So they apprehended him, took him to the health science unit, I think Sunday or Saturday. And the next week, Friday night, and they caused quite a lot of damage to our family's house to bring him out. They broke we had those metal security doors that you see on storefronts on the front and back doors. They broke that, and then they came in through the window, broke the window, and they had a barrier behind the window. They broke that, and they took him in. Then that was on a Saturday. Then on a Friday, I get a phone call from the hospital. Do you know where your brother is? I said, excuse me? No. It caused all that damage to our house to get him. What, you lost him? Is he somewhere in the hospital? He says, no, well, we let him out on a smoke break, and he didn't come back. So I said, well, what do you want me to do to him? I said, he's probably at his residence. I can't imagine any other place he'd be. Do you want me to go down there and try talking him into coming back? He says, well, no, just go there, and if you can get him to call us, we think he's a bit better now, and he can stay there for now. So I go down there, and I get my brother to call him on the speakerphone, so I'm listening to the conversation, and they say he can stay there. Okay. So then, 2 weeks later, I have these IIU guys come to my doorstep and say, oh, your brother's was in an altercation with the police, and he's been shot multiple times. So, is he still alive? Well, to the best of our knowledge, he came out of surgery, and he is alive. So I went and got my other brother. We raced down to the Health Science Center, and I started off with information. What do we do? And they said stuff like, oh, we don't know where he is. We don't know his condition. And that's all we were concerned with, was with his prognosis. We weren't, what happened. Is he alive? What are his chances? This and that. And they told us, well, go sit in that waiting room, and when we find the doctors who operated on him, they'll come talk to you. So we sit there for, I think, was it 2 or 3 hours? Finally, a member of the IIU comes in and says, I'm sorry for your loss. And I was like, I've never been the same since, to be honest with you. And so then he tells us, oh, there's a warrant, they want to examine your household, and you can't go in there. Okay. So we went down there, and we asked the police, are you going to be closing up the house, with boards or whatever? And they said, absolutely, So then, a few days passed, the warrant's over, the IIU phones me and he says, you can go, the police are giving you back the house. So I go down to the house and have a short conversation with a police officer, and he says, toodaloo, we'll see you around. Like, I said, what about boarding up the house? He says, no, that's your responsibility. I said, well, gee, thanks. It's like 8 o'clock at night. I'm 67 years old. I don't have any tools or plywood, or I got $20 in my pocket. So I go on Google and I find the board up service, and the guy says, I'll be there in half an hour. I'll get it done for you for $300 cash, no bill. So luckily, I have a few friends left in this world. I phoned up somebody and told him what's going on, and he emailed me $300. So I delayed the boarding, got service for 15 minutes, went and cashed it, and got the house boarded up. And the boarding up guy he claims he does work for police. I never recorded my conversation with him, but he said, you got tricked. If you weren't there, they would have had to call somebody like me and board up the house, and you wouldn't have to deal with this. But if a family member is there regarding the house, it's your responsibility. So I don't know what to say about that. I'm not saying that IIU colluded with the police for $300. It was annoying. Like, they should have, at least told me that I would be prepared to board up the house yourself.
It's just one thing after another.
Yeah. So then finally we get into the house and the scene of the shooting, and I'm looking at there's double-digit bullet holes in the wall, and they would have shot him a distance of less than 10 feet from the stairwell. And I'm looking at the height of the bullets, and it's face high, So we asked the IIU for the simple courtesy, can we see my brother's body? Like you watch on TV, they always pull over the cover and goodbye, Brad. And we were denied. So right then, I don't know, I kind of got suspicious or just, annoyed at the process, Why couldn't we see our brother's body?
So let's go from there.
Okay.
What kind of communication have you had since then from the IIU?
Well, I let my other brother Hartley deal with it because I was just, worried I'd say the wrong thing after not being allowed to see my brother's body. And he's been on it from day one. When they say, okay, we'll tell you, we'll tell you something at the end of the month. They just kept on going and going and going. And they said they concluded their investigation in April, but they need the approval of one person to reveal the results. And to this date, he was shot February 13th. We don't know anything, not a thing. Not how many people shot him or why was he shot. The premise they put in the papers was that he sprayed the police with a fire extinguisher and he had a wide-edged weapon. My brother was very kind and like I said, peaceful, and he wasn't that type of person, a weapons person. Like, he was a gambler and lost most of his money all the time, but sometimes he'd win big. So one time he won over $10,000, and he didn't race out and buy a machete or a machine gun. He protected the house. He got cameras, and he got those roll-up doors over the doors, so when he went out of the house, he didn't even worry about being broken into. So this premise that he attacked them, I can't see it, but I'd like to know at least what their position is, you know.
So there's, the IAU has...
Nothing. And, you know, and they came, you know, when the day they told us when he died, and we asked them how long will the investigation be, and the guy gave some kind of corny speech. We can't tell you anything till the investigation's complete, and had this corny thing. You might find this, but later on, this might turn into that, and us telling you might compromise the process, you know. So we haven't received anything, you know, except from the city. We had to, you know, take away the window off the lawn that they busted, or that type of stuff. But nothing, you know. It's not even like remember the police came to my brother's funeral and said, you know, we're sorry, you know, we're not sure why this happened, but we're sorry for you.
Sorry, that happened?
Yeah, nothing like that
Oh,
ever
nothing
happened.
like
You know,
that.
just this, we're investigating. The independent is investigating. And, you know, so as far as all the trauma of losing a loved one, you're in the dark, and you don't trust the process because of how they're acting.
And so what my story is looking at is, you know, 3 years ago, the government decided, and they said, you know, we need to fix certain aspects of the IIU. You know, we need to make them, their investigative powers stronger. We need to do this. And for reasons we don't know why, everyone approved it, but the changes are still never happened to this day. They're still working on them, is what I've been told by the Justice Minister. Just when you hear that, what do you feel? What do you feel?
Well, first of all, you know, the government, I feel, you know, having lost my brother, it's the wrong focus. Like, you know, they should be focused on having the officers have body cams, and you need less of an investigation. You know, like a picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video's worth 1,000 pictures. You know, we know what happened. You know, we can see it in our own eyes. Okay, that's why they shot my brother. Not this, you know, we'll tell you next month, or he died of COVID or something. I don't know if that's going to be their conclusion, but, you know, and then for mental patients, I think it's really more than changes to the IU investigation, since we've had like 3 or 4 deaths this year. We need a special team to deal with these people. Sending in the gang unit, you know, to take them to the hospital. It's just the wrong approach, and it's not rocket science. Like, you need some healthcare professionals, maybe a security professional. Like to say, to have the, you know, to say my brother is a big threat. He was 60 years old. He had a walking boot on, and what weapon? What's this wide-edged or whatever weapon he was using? Why is that such a big secret?
I guess what message does it send to you and your family who's waiting for this investigation when you know that changes that were supposed to be made 3 years ago still aren't made?
I think it says it all, you know, like they recognize there's a problem. You spend time, you know, studying for solutions, and then they don't implement them. So, you know, what does that say? It's like everything else.
How does it make you feel? Like, what is that?
Well, you know, it's like a lot of things in today's world. It makes me feel like the public doesn't matter, and you know, it's all like just for getting reelected, you know, or something. It's not for improving our world. And I can't really, like I said, I haven't seen the IIU's report, so I can't really even, you know, comment on that, let alone proposed changes. I'm not, you know, I'm just a simple layman. I'm not a lawyer or a police officer or investigator. But I think just that they studied it 3 years ago and made no implementation is a bad thing. Like all these, I read that briefly, you know, and I think some of those ideas in there, they're good. They wouldn't hurt. They would only help. So why not implement them? But more so, I still feel that body cams would be good for both the public and the police. Sometimes the police are wrongly accused. It's just he said, she said. If you have the body cam, you can see what's going on.
Martin, is there anything that you wanted to add, that you wanted to speak about, or did you, or I could just ask you questions?
Sure. No, sure. I think that there are problems in the system, and changes have to be made. And even the proposed legislative changes that haven't been implemented or enacted don't go far enough, in my respectful opinion. In representing Mr. Singer here, the family needs answers. The family wants to know what happened. And it's been now 9 months, and they still don't know what happened. And it just seems to us that there's no sense of urgency on the part of the authorities. I mean, when someone is murdered, there's a quick investigation. The police do their best to solve it as soon as possible. Here, someone lost their life, yet it seems to take a long period of time for the family to get answers and for there even to be a preliminary report. So it's my recommendation that certain changes be made in the legislation as follows. The law should be that deadlines for a report are put in place, especially a preliminary report by the IIU. Secondly, the IIU should be required to meet with the family of someone who's lost their life as a result of police violence within 14 days of the incident and every 30 days thereafter to update the family. That isn't happening. Another thing is the autopsy and toxicology results should be disclosed to the family within 60 days. And the testing should be completed within 45 days. I can tell you I wrote to the medical examiner back in February of this year asking for the autopsy results, asking for an inquest, and my client has given me permission to share this with you. Here's my letter to Dr. Eunice, Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, March 2024, and we haven't received any reply.
No reply.
No reply. Not even a phone call. Not the courtesy of a letter saying we're on top of it, we're doing things. We still know, we don't have the autopsy results. Apparently, Mr. Singer advises me that the results were ready in July, but they haven't been shared with me or with the family, and that's unacceptable. So there has to be changes made to the law that puts priority on these investigations and gives answers to the families. Another thing is we have all kinds of programs and government offices for victims of crime. We don't have anything for families of victims of police violence. And I call on the Manitoba government to create an infrastructure and a formal office to provide services for families like the Singers, whose brother lost their life as a result of police violence. And I think it's long overdue that we have that kind of infrastructure. So the other recommendation that I have, aside from body cams, which I share with my client, should be mandatory. The medical examiner should be required to respond to a family inquiry within 7 days. So within 7 days of my letter, we should have got a response. It's been 9 months or 8 months, no response. Officers involved should have to attend II interviews and indicate if they'll give a statement or not. And notes should be made of that. If they maintain their constitutional right to remain silent, so be it. But it should be documented, and they should be required to submit to an interview. Also, I agree with one of the proposals, which is the members of the IIU should not be composed of current police officers or any former police officers who know the officers involved in the incident. And the IIU should include civilian investigators, and in my opinion, at least one criminologist, one psychiatrist, and a member of a visible minority or a person of color. So these are the things that I would advocate for in terms of changing legislation. The proposed changes, in my view, are cosmetic. They don't go far enough to deal with the issues that need to be dealt with and to help families like the Singers.
I do know in speaking to the former civilian director, you know, he sort of had a lot of similar things to say that you said, you know, like,
Yeah.
sure, these changes are good, but there's a lot more than we wanted. I know one was the one that they did like, and one that a lot of advocates have said is, you know, that there's punishments for not complying with the IIU. I guess, is that something that you think is important?
Well, there has to be accountability. And the legislation that's proposed doesn't indicate what the penalties would be. So it seems toothless. But to what degree can you require them to comply? If reasonable requests are made and the police don't comply, yes, there should be something in place to mandate that. Now, the police have a constitutional right to remain silent. They don't have to answer questions. But if it's certain information, where reasonable requests are made for certain information or parts of the investigation, that should be forthcoming without any delay. As you know, historically, there's been delays. There's been some resistance in handing over some information. And again, the legislation should deal with that, so priority is given to release of information as soon as possible. So we have public transparency, we have police accountability, and we have the answers that we need to get that can assist the family in getting over their loss and easing the pain.
How did you know that the autopsy was ready? Would have been completed?
His brother told him. Apparently his brother was contacted and was told the autopsy report was completed in July and the report would be forthcoming at the end of September. So far there's no report. There's no autopsy report being disclosed to us. And so my client feels like he's met with a wall of silence.
Yeah, because we're mid-November, past mid-November.
Yeah.
We're almost into Christmas.
February will be a year.
And no autopsy.
No disclosure to us of any autopsy results. I have my letter dated March 10th.
Mm-hmm. And there's been no response. Have you heard anything from the Justice Minister about any of this?
Nothing.
Because, you know, back in the day, the Justice Minister used to be able to call an inquest. He can't anymore under legislative changes.
Okay, but yeah, so it's up to the chief medical examiner to call for the inquest.
It used to be the Justice
Yeah,
Minister.
I know it used to be, that's right. Well, so that law has to be changed, so it's restored. So the Justice Minister can make those recommendations again. Just seems we're going backwards rather than going forwards. And I just wish the same urgency would be used up by the police in investigating these matters as quickly as they investigate murders or investigate people who commit crimes. Because the family deserves answers and the public deserves answers, and it only helps provide transparency for police conduct and give accountability for police if something went wrong, if they did something wrong. So one of the issues is, I think Mr. Singer wanted to know about toxicology results. Weren't you told about that? Or
Well, yeah, that was mentioned. They're waiting back for toxicology results. But a question I was asked the IIU is, did you ever examine the people involved in the shooting for toxicology? Like, you know, there might be a possibility, like even if they didn't examine them the next day, even if they could examine them now and say, well, you examined all the officers who are clean, and there could be, yeah, all were clean except this guy, you know, because to shoot somebody like that, you know, without empathy, you know, maybe one of them or, you know, was high on drugs. It's a possibility that's, and they shouldn't be afraid of proving that they're not a drug addict.
I guess one of my last questions is just, you know, what do you want the public to remember about your brother?
Well, I like them to remember his kindness. Like we lived in a bad area of town, and a few years back, me and him bought a whole cow. And so we ate all the, you know, the stuff we liked, and maybe at the end, you know, there was 25 packets of stuff he didn't like or I didn't like. So there was a problem with this guy across the street. I'm not sure what his problems were, but he was going through everybody's garbage to eat food on. You know, so my brother, you know, took about 10 packets of meat, knocked on this guy's door and says, look, you don't need to go through garbage. Here's some food. If you need some cooking utensils or something, let me know. And he's that type of person. You know, this idea that, you know, he was some crazed, you know, dangerous person is totally false. You know, like he was very kind. I've got a 17-year-old boy, and he's very kind to him. You know, we'd watch his hockey games, and we'd go out for a bite to eat. You know, he would always visit his mother. It was just, you know, he had some problems, but the problems didn't make him bitter like it does some people. He never lost that kindness or friendliness. And all of the friends, he had lots of friends, and they were all just shocked by this and really mad at the police. Like I'm at least, you know, willing to be open-minded about it. You know, there's a bunch of mistakes were made. I might even blame the doctors more than the police. But he was never bitter about it, you know. He was always nice to people. I miss him. He was, you know, my youngest brother, but in many ways he was my best friend. We were involved in a lot of businesses together, and it was Those memories I share with him that nobody else knows about. It's like a total loss for me in that regard. I just wish, it didn't happen. And I don't know, the IIU investigation doesn't really matter to me. Like, I can't believe that there was a mens rea that the police went to Tim Hortons and conspired to murder him. There's no, what possible crime is there? It's just the crime of having that job. You should get another job because you're not very good at it. Like, it's not wanted dead or alive. It's just because he missed a doctor's appointment. He's sitting at home. He's not robbing Safeway or out bugging. He's just sitting in the privacy of his home, and why did you have to do that? You could have done so many other things. You could have tasered him. You could have thrown in tear gas. You could have shot him once in the shoulder or arm or some other place that's not, why did you have to spray him with bullets for missing a doctor's appointment, essentially? And then we don't have any answers, from the IIU, like nothing. There's no, I said, I don't trust their transparency after they wouldn't let us see his body. And I haven't done any research, on what their prior cases are, what their rulings are. But, why wouldn't they implement, the changes they 3 years ago and perhaps expand on them like Mr. Glazer and others have, said. It's just a real tragedy. I miss him terribly.
And Martin, is there anything else you wanted to say that we didn't touch on?
Just I think part of legislation should make it mandatory for police to wear body cameras, so we have complete transparency as to what happened. And the footage should be released to the family within 30 days and made public as soon as possible thereafter.
And actually in Alberta, ACERT, there's been cases where, so in Alberta, their IIU, they release body cam footage for the public while they're investigating. And I think, maybe that's something, we should look into.
I think so.
I've heard people talk about that.
I think so. And the fact that it takes so long, they don't explain why does it take so long. We want them to do a thorough investigation, but at the same time, they can provide updates. They can meet with the family. They can issue preliminary reports. But simply to make my client feel ignored is really unacceptable. So I think that needs to be changed. That's the first priority. Just have compassion and empathy for the people who are grieving, for the people whose loved one died as a result of police violence, whether rightly or wrongly. These people are humans. They lost a brother, in this case. They lose a son, a father, whatever. They're part of the community, and they should be treated as victims.
Justin, do you want to get a two-shot now? Maybe we could just keep talking.
Sure.
And actually, it's something I've heard a lot from families when it comes to the IIU, is just that, they feel in the dark. That is a common occurrence, that they feel in the dark because they've never gone through a police investigation. They don't know what's going on, and it's always, I've written these stories, family searches for answers in investigation. And so it's definitely not the first time I've heard this.
Yeah. In terms of public relations exercise, go out of your way to meet with them, talk to them, show empathy, don't ignore them. And that's how my client feels. So that's the thing. There's a human element here, and that human element has to be upheld. And there's really there's no rationale or reason given by the people investigating as to why it's taking so long and why they won't release certain information.
Even privately,
to meet with the family and say,
Right.
look, our investigation's ongoing. We can share with you this, we can't share with you other things, but at least know we're on top of it. We're doing our best to do an unbiased, impartial investigation. And if you have any questions at any time, please call us. But like I say, the family feels there's a wall of silence.
And Hartley, sorry, is this going to ruin your shot, Justin? I'm just going to ask him a quick question.
Well, you're not gonna get it.
No, I don't know. I don't need you to get it.
Oh, you
I'm just. When was the last time you spoke to someone from the IIU?
Personally, by phone on June 6th, and I've emailed them August 1, October 3rd, and November 5th, the team commander.
So June 6th, and what did they say by phone?
Well, that was the commander, and he said that he like. I actually also talked to him in April too, before the press conference, and he said that there was like 4 more policemen to interview, and they had no autopsy report. And then on June 6th, he said that the autopsy report was done, but they were waiting for a toxicology report from the medical examiner, and that could take years.
And in July, were you told
July 14th, yes. I also contacted, he also said that he was retiring June 30th, so I had to go contact the team leader. I won't mention his name, but he said in middle of July that they've got the toxicology report, but they had to put the all together and send it up the line. And then I contacted him August 1st, and he said we send it up the line, and they scheduled September 29th, 2023 as the 2024 as the date of release. So
Release of their report?
no, the decision, make a decision, and release of the report.
The IAU
Now
report or the autopsy?
that's what he said, or I thought he said. So October 3rd, I contacted him, and of course that was not the case, that they would never release it before meeting with the public or meeting with a private family and discussing the results first. But they never got around to it, and the civilian director, that Roxanne, she postponed it till October 23rd. So October 25th, I emailed him back, and he said, well, they're busy. I think she was in Saskatchewan possibly at that time, and but they rescheduled it for October 31st. So, but we'll be in touch. So on October 5th, I haven't heard from him at all. So I emailed him again. He said, "Yeah, sorry, it's not done, and we'll try and get it. Well, you know what? When it's done, we'll call you." And it's not going to be an instant thing. It'll probably take about two months to actually get it from the public to after meeting us. Well, once you get the report and the decision, like they release it, and it takes about a month or 2 to get it online. So that's where it stands right now. We're just waiting for something to happen from the IIU.
Okay, I'm wondering if now do you want to get a shot of maybe the 3 of them talking? Is it okay to get?
Are you done like the interview?
Yeah,
part?
we're done with the interview.
Okay, I'm stopping.
Yeah.